Excelência, Senhor Governador do Banco Nacional de Angola, Manuel Tiago Dias, excelentíssimos membros do Conselho de Administração do Banco Nacional de Angola, caros convidados, representantes do Banco de Espanha cá, que nos honram com a sua presença nesta manhã, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. É com enorme prazer e regozijo que damos as boas-vindas a todos cá, nesta magna sala, para hoje abordarmos o tema sobre as estatísticas da Central de Balanços e a sua importância. Sem mais delongas, iremos convidar então Sua Excelência, Senhor Governador do Banco Nacional de Angola, para poder então fazer a abertura do ato e vamos receber Sua Excelência recém-nomeado com uma forte salva de palmas.
Muito bom dia a todos e obrigado pelos aplausos. Ilustres representantes dos bancos centrais, da comunidade de língua portuguesa, distintos representantes dos diversos departamentos ministeriais da República de Angola, caros responsáveis do Banco Nacional de Angola, da Administração Geral Tributária e do Instituto Nacional de Estatística, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. É com elevada satisfação que formulo votos de boas-vindas a todos os convidados que se dignaram prontamente atender ao nosso convite para participar do workshop sobre as estatísticas da Central de Balanços e a importância para o fortalecimento das estatísticas oficiais, elemento essencial para a tomada de decisões de política. O Banco Nacional de Angola, no âmbito da sua atribuição das suas atribuições estatísticas, passou a produzir e a publicar, a partir do primeiro trimestre de 2022, as estatísticas das sociedades não financeiras, ou seja, a Central de Balanços, para auxiliar na tomada de decisões, em particular de política monetária. A produção e difusão das estatísticas das sociedades não financeiras contribui para um melhor conhecimento da situação econômica e financeira das empresas, o que contribui igualmente para avaliar a aptidão das mesmas em absorver os recursos do sistema financeiro e a capacidade financeira destas e honrar os seus respectivos compromissos. As ações estratégicas do Banco Nacional de Angola sobre essa matéria têm como fim último a tomada de decisões de política monetária, mas também reforçar as análises macroprudenciais em prol da estabilidade financeira. Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, o Banco Nacional de Angola tem desenvolvido desde 2017 a Central de Balanços com o suporte técnico do Banco de Portugal, a quem agradecemos, mediante a realização de missões de assistência técnica. Adicionalmente, contamos com a colaboração de 3 parceiros fundamentais, nomeadamente a Administração Geral Tributária, o Instituto Nacional de Estatística e diversas empresas no domínio da partilha de informação das demonstrações financeiras. Os nossos agradecimentos vão igualmente para estas instituições nacionais. A Central de Balanços é uma base de dados de informação econômica e financeira das empresas não financeiras do nosso país. Esta informação baseia-se, sobretudo, em dados contabilísticos anuais de natureza não consolidada de diversos setores de atividade econômica e tem como suporte metodológico o Manual de Compilação das estatísticas das sociedades não financeiras da Divisão de Estatísticas das Nações Unidas. há cerca de mais um ano, mais um ano, sim, publicamos as primeiras estatísticas sobre sociedades não financeiras, tendo como base a Central de Balanços. Atualmente, já temos publicados no nosso site institucional os indicadores econômicos e financeiros, bem como os relatórios de análise sectorial, dos quais destacamos as atividades de informação e comunicação, indústria transformadora, de bebidas, construção, transporte e armazenagem. Neste contexto, com o objetivo de dar maior robustez à informação da Central de Balanços, está prevista para este ano a publicação do quadro do setor da extração de petróleo bruto e gás natural, seguindo-se o setor do comércio. Caros convidados, apesar de termos alcançado marcos notáveis com apoio incondicional dos nossos parceiros, a quem agradecemos mais uma vez pela colaboração, entendemos que persistem alguns desafios com vista a aumentar a cobertura estatística da Central de Balanços, aperfeiçoar as metodologias e os processos de trabalho. Por isso, devemos escolher a experiência dos especialistas do Banco de Espanha. Estão presentes nesta sala e para quem solicito uma vibrante salva de palmas. Trata-se dos senhores Manuel Ortega e Alfredo Maldonado, que nos últimos dias têm estado a trabalhar com os nossos colegas do Departamento de Estatística do Banco Nacional de Angola. Com estas palavras, declaro aberto o workshop. Muito obrigado e bom proveito.
Obrigado, senhor governador, pelas palavras de abertura. Vamos continuar aqui com o nosso workshop, que já foi aberto pelo senhor governador e já foi dito que teremos aqui 12 especialistas do Banco de Espanha, nomeadamente o senhor Manuel Ortega e o senhor Alfredo Maldonado. Gostaríamos de dizer que o senhor Manuel Ortega é o diretor da Central de Balanços do Banco de Espanha, é também o presidente da Data Quality, que é uma instituição que está afeta a uma organização internacional que é a Legal Identity Identifier, que é uma organização internacional que trabalha diretamente com o Financial Stability Board. Igualmente, o senhor Alfredo Maldonado é o chefe da unidade central de balanços a nível do Banco de Espanha e também dirige diversos grupos de trabalho a nível do Banco de Espanha e igualmente a nível internacional. Portanto, estamos em presença de dois grandes especialistas que já estão a levantar, podem vir, a quem o senhor governador já solicitou, mas nunca é demais pedirmos uma forte salva de palmas.
Muito obrigado. Muito grato pelo convite para participar nesta conferência sobre a importância dos dados da Central de Balanços. Esperamos que o día seja do interese de todos os participantes, rogándoles que nos pregunten la información que quisieran saber más detalladamente al final de la presentación. Muito obrigado ao Banco de Angola. Muito obrigado ao Banco de Angola por la hospitalidade e a atención recibida. É um prazer para nós conhecer sua cidade, seu país, seu povo. Muito obrigado. We have to change to English from now on, sorry. My Portuguese, I should say that is nearly finished. So, again, thank you very much to Banco de Angola for the invitation, and to all the people here today in the room. Our idea is to share with you our experience in Spain of the creation of the Central Balance Data Office. So the first thing should be why a CBSO, a Central Balance Data Office, in a national central bank. This is one of the things that we have to explain you. The second is what are the benefits of having a CBSO, not only for the national central bank, but also for companies that report and provide the information, and also to the citizens of the nation, of the country. We would like to share with you the experiences of we could say, a young, mature lady, that is our Central Balance Data Office of Spain. We have been working 40 years now. Precisely this year is our 40th anniversary, and we have special events that you will check in the website of Banco de España and in the website of our Central Balance Data Office. So we can share with you this experience of this young and mature lady at the same time, creating new products and new tools of information for, as said, the National Central Bank, and also for the all the companies. Well, we have seen in our colleagues this day, working with them, with Dongola, Elaboco, Anna, and Joel, we have seen the energy and the determination to expand the information that they have currently in their databases, and to become a leader in the region on the elaboration of data of non-financial corporations. So, well, with this, let me begin the presentation. As said, we will have four points. The first one is about why a CBSO here in the National Central Bank. The second one is some examples about why the microdata that we have are useful for several things, and very different things. This is something that has happened over 40 years. We began with an approach. National Central Bank of Spain began their Central Balance Data Office in the year 1983 in December, and from that time, our approach was to create information for companies. This was the beginning. Our governor at that time had visited recently in the 60s, in the 70s, National Bank of France. And in France, their Central Balance Data Office was devoted to create information for companies, for non-financial corporations, to help the companies to have information about how were their business in comparison, which was the beginning of our works precisely. We thought that it was important to obtain data from companies voluntarily, as I will present you now, and afterwards to produce data for the company itself. This was our beginning in 1984. Afterwards, in 1987, the governor decided that our data have to be integrated with the statistical department, because it was necessary that all the figures, all the data that we produce have to be integrated in a broader perimeter or broader scenario, that was the financial accounts, the data from the National Central Bank about the economy, and to integrate this information. So from that time, we had to permanently have two views in our works. One is what is the information that is interesting for companies, to provide this data for the companies, and the other is what is the information that is also necessary for our National Central Bank to have information about financial stability, monetary policy, and so on and so forth. And that means to have always the two approaches. One is business accounting. The data that we obtain is from business accounting, but this language have to be afterwards changed internally to the national account environment. That is similar, but it's not the same. So this was our approach, and this is something that we will present. In the third part of our presentation, Alfredo is my colleague. He will present in some detail what are the current products and which are the users of the data that we have in our Central Balance Sheet Data Office. And finally, if we have time, we can present as an example what is the analysis that we have done about the current situation of our Spanish economy with information from our databases. It's a kind of example that I think that could be interesting, more than to pay attention to what is the situation of our country, Spain, is about how the information that we have about companies allow us to know with a certain even information nowcasting, we could say, about what is happening now to the Spanish companies. And we will present in the fourth part of our presentation. Well, beginning with the first, why a Central Balance Sheet Data Office in a national central bank? Well, the Central Balance Sheet Data Office have target is to collect data, to compile data, and to analyze data of the situation of non-financial corporations. The information afterwards also has to be, I will see from here. Side doesn't work there. So, do you hear me now? Yeah, thank you. So, sorry, because I will have to be watching you and watching the screen. So, thank you. What is our responsibility is to be to have extremely good quality with the information that we create, and the second thing is to be very confidential. So I must say, you will see afterwards that in the case of Spain, the information before 1990, it was the information of non-financial corporations has to be prepared. All the companies have the obligation to prepare their financial statements, annual accounts. But before 1990, this information was secret, but has to be prepared. The law that established this is a law from the 19th century. So this law says all companies have to prepare their annual accounts, balance sheet, profit and loss account, but this information is only for the use of the company, and also if a judge asks for this information. This was until 1990. In 1990, after our inclusion in the European Union, we were obliged, Spain, to change our law to say from that moment, the information of the non-financial corporations, all those that limited the responsibility of their shareholders, that is the Sociedades Anónimas and Sociedades Limitadas, that is the 90% of companies, all these companies have to provide the information outside of the company. So it was a great change at that time in the way we have the opportunity to obtain the data. But even in this case, because the information is available publicly from 1990 in the mercantile registers, even in this case, we wanted also to have quarterly data, not only annual data, quarterly data. And the quarterly data is totally out of the law. The law, it doesn't say anything about the quarterly information that has to be provided. This information is very sensitive for companies, but we has got 1,000 companies that every quarter they send us the data to Bank of Spain. And why? It's because we have shown them that they can trust that the information that they provide will be treated very confidentially. But it's information that is tremendously important. I will show you afterwards with some examples to check what is the situation of our institutions and our companies. And the corporations, after 40 years working with the Central Balance Sheet Data Office, they are totally confident on, first, the importance that have to provide this information to the Bank of Spain and to the National Statistical Office, the importance of providing data, because it has a return, economic return for the companies. We will see afterwards in which sense the companies also benefit from providing the data. But the second thing is that, they can be totally safe that the information will be treated only internally. Company by company, the information never goes out of Banco de España, and we only provide aggregated information outside the company, outside our national central bank. So the third thing is, for what the information is? For decisions, for taking decisions, as said Manuel Thiago, is policymakers and regulators. They need more information to take good decisions about monetary policy, financial stability, and financial sector regulation. And finally, the organization. Why a CBSO in a national central bank? We could say that this happened in all the countries that are in our area. In the case of Spain, it happens in Portugal, in France, in Italy, in Belgium, in Germany. All national central banks, they have their own national central balance sheet data office to have direct information from non-financial corporations. So the statistical offices, the National Statistical Office, also have information, but it's another kind of information. It's independent information about what is happening with the employees, with deployment, what is happening with the revenues, the production, the service about the compensation to employees, but not what is provided in a central balance sheet data office. That is the full picture about what is the situation of the company itself, the profit, the losses, all the expenses, all the incomes, and all the assets and liabilities, that when you have all together, this allows you to create key performance indicators that can't be obtained from the partial survey that the National Statistical Office reviews. Both things are necessary, as we will see, but the approach provided by the Central Balance Sheet Data Office provides insights that are not available in the national accounts. Why is important to have a Central Balance Sheet Data Office? Well, in the 1984, when we began, it was easy to explain, because we said, what do we know in Banco de España about the economy? We knew at Banco de España, in our statistical office, everything about financial institutions is clear, because we ask the financial institutions everything, and we ask them annually, quarterly, monthly, every week, every day. So this is something that happens everywhere. So we know perfectly what is the situation of financial institutions. Second thing, we knew very well what happened with the state, the public administration, and the debt, because we were the bankers, and we are the bankers of the state. So all the information, financial information about what was the situation of the public administration was known very well by Banco de España. We knew very well also what was the situation of our relation with the rest of the world, because we had, and you have, the balance of payments. This is crucial. So this information was well known. And what we knew about the rest, several things. But these several things were independent, as I said, production, consumption, investment, but not a full picture of the rest. And the rest is this part and this part. So we were a little lazy, we could say, because we didn't know nothing about the 80% of the economy. We knew, but we knew as a mirror, because we know the things about the rest. but we didn't know anything about what happened with households and what happened with non-financial corporations. For that reason, Banco de España began with a new project that was, first, we have to know something about households. This is the part. And we did with a survey that still we are keeping, a survey about the wealth of households and the financial situation and condition of households. And afterwards, about this part, we began with the Central Balance Sheet Data Office. So the first reason why we have a Central Balance Sheet Data Office is because we need this information. What are the pros and cons of having this information? The pros of having the information from not independent service, but from the financial statements is that things are balanced. This is marvelous for a statistician when you find that something, the assets, is balanced with the liabilities. All the assets and the liabilities you have in a balance sheet, and you find that everything is balanced, is equal. And you have profits, and you have incomes, and you have also expenses, and you have as a difference the profit or the loss of the year. So that is the basic thing of accountancy, business accountancy, is something marvelous for creating statistics, because well, you have afterwards you have to make some elevation to the total population. You have some missing data, but the main part of the information that is provided in the financial statements is sufficient for creating all what we say new KPIs, that is key performance indicators. Things that with the national accounts you can obtain about what is the profitability of a company, what are the productivity, what is the productivity of companies, productivity, rentability, also the average cost of the financial debt that the companies receive, also the payment delays. All this information can obtain from the balance of the companies and the profit and loss account. The third thing is that although you have information in a business accounting approach, that the business accounting now in Spain is mainly IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. We have a national flavor for this IFRS, but it's IFRS. But this business accounting, you can transfer and transform to something that is afterwards usable in national accounts, because you can create a transactional system to transfer the assets and liabilities from one approach to the other. And finally, the main pros is that you have access to the microdata. That is the part that I will present now, mainly, is why it's important to have access to this microdata. Not only the full picture of what is happening in non-financial corporations, but also what is happening in one region, what is happening in one sector of activity, or a size, what is happening with small and medium companies, that is different what is happening with the large companies, or what is happening with those companies that are foreign controlled. This is something that is new. In our case, we have to prepare for 2028. In 2028, in Europe, will be compulsory that the national accounts provide information on the financial accounts about not only the non-financial corporations, also about the non-financial corporations that are controlled by the rest of the world, foreign controlled corporations. Okay. And finally, what are the cons? Well, something bad is that the information comes with a lot of delay. Yeah, this is true. The annual data, that is the data of 2022, December, we are receiving now, and we will receive until October, more or less. Yeah? I told you that our law comes from the 19th century. In 1885, it was our commercial code. This is something that was done by our relation with the French. Napoleon came to Spain and brought us the measures. We have the meter, we have the liter, and we have also the commercial code that comes from this age. And at that time, it was said that the companies have to create their annual statements, annual financial statements, and take to the shareholders in June. So in 1885, it was said in June the companies have to prepare their annual accounts and provide these annual accounts to the shareholders. Well, of course, there was no internet, no computers at that time. It's incredible that still we have the same law in Spain and in Europe. This is not a problem only of Spain. I tend to think that it's a worldwide problem. And is that although the companies now, in January, they know perfectly what happened last year, we receive the information after 6, 7, 8 months. This is something that we have to live with. And this is one of the cons. And for that reason, precisely, we created a quarterly survey to have information about what is happening. Precisely this week, in the Monday of this week, we presented the results of the first quarter of 2023. This is something that we can do because we have a database that is quarterly. And finally, also some cons is that we have a pressure, a political pressure in Europe to reduce the reporting burden. Reduce the reporting burden means that the companies want to provide less details about some of their figures because they say that it's a cost, the production of the data, and this is true. For that reason, what we have done in Spain, Banco de España, is to promote with other institutions in Spain, that is the Stock Exchange Commission, the National Statistical Office, the Mercantile Registers, also the Instituto de Contabilidad, that is the accounting standard board, Spanish accounting standard board. We promoted the creation of digital solutions to say, well, I ask you information. I know that it's costly to produce the information, but I help you also with a digital approach. That is, you have to provide the data in a standard format that is available for everybody and that is provided in a precise computer language, that is XBL in this case. They also provide some PDFs, images. And this will change little by little because a PDF finally, it doesn't work for uploading the data. The PDF is not a digital solution, really. It's nice because at least everybody see the same. But when you have afterwards to interchange data and upload the information, PDF is not the perfect solution. So for that reason, we are creating new tools for the uploading of the data in Europe. Well, microdata. Why we need the microdata? Well, we need to find the singularities because I don't know if this is. You know what is the population, but you need to find also the singularities, the outliers that allow you to find more information about what is happening. So format that is so format that is so Have in households in general, but we need the survey about the wealth of households to know how this is distributed. So the microdata is essential for that. And once we have the microdata and we have the macrodata also, we have national accounts and we have the microdata, now we have a new challenge, that is how to explain to researchers and to analysts that when you have all the microdata, this microdata is not the same when you aggregate all the microdata, is not the same as the total information that you have in the national accounts. And well, it's a challenge, but it's something that can be explained. And the researchers and the analysts have to know, and is that although you have all the information about all the companies and you aggregate, you will not have what is the picture of the total economy, because there are things like informal economy, hidden economy, that is not available in the official data, and also the reason of some imputations and estimations that have to be done in the creation of the national accounts. Well, now some examples about the kind of things that we can do having the data of the companies, company by company. This is the sample that we have in Banco de España. First, to give you some idea about what are the databases that we have. In the Central Balance Sheet Data Office of Banco de España, we began in 1984 with a voluntary collaboration of 3,000 companies, 3,000. In the years until 1990, that it was obligatory to provide the data to the mercantile registers, we had 10,000 companies, no more. But from this time, it began to grow because we created also the electronic format. Finally, it was XBRL, but at the beginning was an electronic format. And from that time, we began to grow until 1 million companies. Now we are receiving every year nearly 1 million companies out of the 1,200,000 that exist in Spain. There are 1,200,000 companies officially created and alive in Spain. But afterwards, we receive information about 1 million companies because first, there are 100,000 that provide the data on paper still, and we don't use this information because we have all the information about the rest of companies. And the second thing is that, well, these companies, some companies exist but have no activity. They are alive, they deposit their annual accounts, but they don't have activity. In this case, we don't integrate in our studies. Finally, the databases that we have, I will show you very rapidly this. We have around, in our studies, 800,000 companies when we filter the data. This is from voluntary collaboration, the direct survey that we have, that is 10,000 companies, more or less. The rest are the small and medium companies that comes from the mercantile registers. And with this, we create something that is the integrated database, because the information is provided in the same standard format, and we can join the two databases. Finally, this is the 60% of the gross added value of the economy. In terms of employment, is the 70% of the economy, more or less. We have afterwards a database for the fintech that was recently created, or the company's fintech, and we have that. We have another for holdings companies, a separated database. And finally, we have the quarterly database. This is individual accounts, individual companies, annual databases, and the quarterly database. In the quarterly database, we have 1,000 companies that represent the 12% of the total economy. But with this 1,000, as we will see afterwards, is enough to show what is the situation of the companies in Spain. And finally, we have the consolidated groups. Precisely, Alfredo is the head of the area where this data is received. And is information from the Stock Exchange Commission, the listed groups, the quoted, that are 100. We have very few companies in Spain listed in the stock exchange market. And we have the mercantile registers that provide us with, well, now here is 800, but we, for the last year, because we are receiving still data, we have around 2,000 groups. And finally, that is something new that I want also to share with you, is the sustainability database. Sustainability database. What is sustainability? Is something that is called ESG, environment, social, and governance indicators. Is the new information that we have to obtain. Is a regulation that is obligatory in Europe from 5 years to have information on this information that is, well, it's something related to integrated reporting and, well, corporate governance data. That the information, it seemed 5 years ago that was no crucial at that time. It seemed that this information about sustainability was something that was a fashion of the people from the university. When we first talked about that with some teachers in the university, cathedratics, we thought, well, this is something new that the consultants probably will want to sell to the companies, the importance of having this information. But everything has changed now. In Europe, and well, I know that also in America, they have a clear position on that, that the information about climate change and the impact of climate change in companies, that is one part of the information, is the E of ESG, the environment data, is something that is crucial now for the companies. And why is crucial for the companies? It's crucial because the financial system has begun to ask for this data. Now, a commercial bank, when provide finance to a company, a non-financial corporation, the financial institution, the bank, has to check to which extent the investment that will be done with the finance that they are providing will be affected by the climate change. So countries like Netherlands, for example, have a problem because Netherlands, they have a great part of the country taken out from the sea. They have created areas of the country in parts that in the case of a climate change that comes and create more impact, they will lose a part of their country. And it's something that is happening also in Spain. So now the financial institutions, they are not obliged. They directly, the banks have included in their business, in their risk assessment, the analysis of these sustainability indicators. So for that reason, now the companies also have to provide this data. It's not only because it's set in a law, it's because the financial institutions are asking for that. So everybody now will have to put more attention to these indicators. And that has meant that all the central balance sheet data offices in Europe are beginning to work with this. We have created a database 3 years ago only. We only have 150 groups with information. We have around 20,000 indicators, but all researchers need now this information to verify the risk that the financial system has in the finance and the impact that it will have in the assets that are financed with this finance. Well, now the second sample is these are the financial accounts of the economy. This is the information about the resources and the uses of the finance, investment and financial flows. The blue is the financial debt of the non-financial corporations in Spain. So this is positive. That means that they receive finance, the companies in Spain. In the financial crisis in 2008, suddenly it became negative. That means that the companies have to give back their finance received from the banks. So this is the picture. From obtaining finance from the banks, they have to provide and give back this money. And this affected at the same time the investment. The level of investment is the gross fixed capital formation. was smaller at that time, and the finance of the companies, instead of being the financial system, was internal funds by companies. This is the pink part, internal funding. This is the picture, the overall picture. But Banco de España, because we had the Central Balance Sheet Data Office, could have a division between what is happening with companies that are really giving back the money to the banks, that is this part, those that have the blue part in negative, that are companies that are providing, are giving back the investment, the finance to the banks, and different to those companies that at the same time still receive money from the banks. Because, well, the population, we saw the aggregation was in the last years at negative net finance, but this was possible to be at the same time with companies that receive money and that have to give back the money to the banks. What happened that these companies at the same time have a gross fixed capital formation very high, and these companies that had a minimum gross capital formation because they don't have enough funds to invest. So this gave us the opportunity to understand in Banco de España how was the behavior of companies in this time. It was the full picture of the financial accounts was not enough to know what is the situation of companies. The second that I want to show you is what happened with the COVID-19. The economy was frozen in our countries, in our case in Spain, very heavily in some sectors of activity like tourism, that is the main sector of activity that we have. And this was affected by the COVID. And the Banco de España wanted to know what was the subsidy that we have to provide to companies to avoid that once they were frozen, they died. Because we thought, well, this is a temporary impact. Tourism, for example, in 1 or 2 years, everything will be more normal. So we have to avoid that the companies that have problems now die totally. So we have to subsidize with money from the state to provide finance to them to let them be alive. But we don't want to have an open bank to provide finance to everybody. We have to differentiate which companies have opportunities to return to profits and which companies not. And we, well, the government asked Banco de España, could we know which is the total amount that we need to give the opportunity 1 year that the companies still are alive? And this was obtained with the Central Balance Sheet Data Office. Knowing what are the unsustainability debt in firms that become over-indebted. Over-indebted means that those companies that now have more than 10 times the debt is 10 times higher than the ordinary profits. So you need 10 years to have money to give back the finance that you have. These are the companies over-indebted. And, well, in 2 scenarios, the worst is if you need 12 years to give back your money. And we want to know if they are viable or not. They remain viable in the sense that they have profits, or they had before the pandemic, they had profit. But differentiate from those that have losses, because those that have losses never will have the possibility to pay back the money. So with this, our government obtained information about that we needed around 20,000 million euros of finance. And this was a special line that was created in Spain for that. Well, individual data, consolidated data, both are necessary. Both are necessary. If you want to know something about the activity, production of tourism, industry, energy, you need not the consolidated data, you need the individual data. If you want to know something about risk analysis assessment, then you need both. You need individual data and consolidated data. It's something important because that means that a central balance sheet data office have to have information about both things, the individual companies and also the groups. With this information, we can create this kind of picture about what is the relation among the affiliates of a group. And other things that we have in a central balance sheet data office is statistics, of course. This is the kind of statistics that we publish every quarter with information about what is the evolution of the gross added value, the EBITDA, the ordinary result, the profitability, the finance cost, and the debt ratio. This kind of information is available in our website. Quarterly, we provide also the current signals of the economy, the evolution, with information about how is the behavior of the companies, which percentage of companies do what. In these cases, the green part is those that are increasing their net turnover or the ordinary result or the profitability. And this information is conjunctural and is really interesting for not only the National Central Bank, but for everybody in the market. These are the kind of news that the day after our publication we have in the press. Never individual data, always aggregated data, and the individual data is totally confidential. Well, this is to give you an idea of to which extent the conjunctural analysis is relevant. Well, for financial stability analysis, also is important to have. This is in these cases, the foreseeable effects of changes in the cost of borrowing is something that we created. This was about 6 years ago that we prepared this report about the effect of change in cost of borrowings on the return, the rate of return, that is the profitability of firms. And with information of the statistical distribution to know how every company behaved. This is the kind of approach that only can be obtained with a central balance sheet data office. And this was also something similar, is the impact of the increase in the cost of borrowing on the proportion of firms that have financial pressure. And this was breaking down by sector of activity to know which part of the companies, those that are under financial pressure, are having more impact in their return, in their profitability, due to an increase of the cost of borrowing. And we created scenarios. If we have an increase of 1%, 2%, 3%, which is the percentage of companies that will have a decrease in their ordinary results and in their profitability. So having millions of companies, in this case, we use all the databases altogether, allow you to provide also picture about what is the impact on large companies and in small and medium companies also. Well, CBSO and research. For example, this was a study done about the trade finance in non-financial corporations and how different and heterogeneous it was. This is the information about large companies and small companies in the payment periods. This is the payment period, and the other is the collection period. And also, how was the percentage of the sales that they have related to the trade finance? So we can understand to be better how the trade finance, if you are a net lender or a net borrower, in commercial terms, this is only the relation about the commercial relations, how this affects finally your capability to sell more. Well, risk assessment. The risk assessment studies of the relative position of the company. This is something that is interesting for the companies and also for the financial institutions. In this case, we give, for example, this is the productivity, this is the net sales per employee, and we give the information about how is the behavior of the sector of activity and how is the behavior of the companies. In this case, you compare with thousands of companies of your same sector of activity. This is in average terms, but this is the statistical distribution. That means if the company, that is the dots, are among the worst companies in this ratio, or are among the best, being in the green. And this is important for companies that use this information and also for financial institutions. And this is, again, something similar, but in this case is by law. There was a law in the year 2015, after the financial crisis. The government obliged Banco de España to develop a system of analysis to be employed by the commercial banks to better understand what was the risk assessment of small and medium enterprises. The idea was that some small and medium enterprises that were soundness and were in a good shape, because of the financial crisis, had problems to obtain finance from commercial banks. The idea was, well, what we could do from the government and Bank of Spain to increase the finance to these companies, but to guarantee that the analysis to say no to a company that ask for new finance and receive a no from the financial institutions, to give a objective measure about why you are saying no to a company. So we develop a tool that allow the commercial banks to better know if the company is among the best companies in the sector of activity or about the worst. Is what we have seen before. But in 9 ratios, the ratios for risk assessment, these ratios were selected in a working team between 5 departments of the National Central Bank and also 40 specialists of the commercial banks that altogether decided what are the indicators more relevant for the risk assessment of a company. And once this was decided, we created the statistics to give the opportunity to check if the company, a precise company, was among the best or the worst for these 9 ratios. So the idea was, if a commercial bank says, I will stop the finance to you, the company have the right to obtain from the commercial bank, free of charge, all their portfolio of behavior during the years that the company was a client of this commercial bank, to provide afterwards transparency, to provide this information to another bank, to make easy that if one company are limited the finance by a bank, it can go to another bank to ask for finance with the information necessary to better know if the company have a good behavior or not. It's transparency, what we were talking about, to improve the competitiveness in the financial sector, in the financial system, and also to guarantee that the good companies have access to good finance. Well, the tool is an Excel file that have a part to chart the data of the company. The data is on XML file. It's not necessary to type anything, because the information is the official information that from 1990 I said it's available in the mercantile registers. The information is provided to them. And afterwards, the information about the sector of activity, and finally, the report that is obtained. This is free of charge and is available in the website of the Bank of Spain for all the financial institutions that have access to this tool, this is the tool with the data that is necessary from the balance and profit and loss account that could be charged manually or with XBRL. Once it's charged, afterwards, you obtain the data from the mercantile registers and from us, these are the two institutions, with the statistical distribution of the ratios, and finally you obtain the report, that is this report with nine ratios, indicators, and the position of the company, if is in the green area or if is in the red area. The same was done with the EBITDA. This is other tool, but it's the same. I will not stop here. And now we will move to the presentation of Alfredo. Before doing this, I will want to say something about the information from non-financial corporations. Why? What happened in Spain in 1990 when we, for the first time, asked the data obligatory to the companies? Because it's something that probably is also interesting for you to know. Because at that time, I remember that when we talked with companies, most of the companies said, "Why I have to provide this data? It's my data. I don't know why we have to provide this information to the mercantile registers." It was an European law, I should say. This law was for transparency, for providing more transparency in the market. And the companies asked, why I have to provide information to my competitors? And the answer was two. One, first, because, well, if you limited the responsibility because you are a sociedad anónima, sociedad limitada, honestly, you have an obligation to provide the data outside of your company. You have to provide the data to your employees, to the shareholders. You have to provide the data to your clients and to your also customers. Providers, sorry. So this was one. And the other was, well, it's good for you also. I should say, and I will finish. In 1984, I was out of the bank. At that time, I worked in a commercial bank, in a small area, rural area in the north of Spain, north of Madrid, where I live now. But at that time, I worked in a commercial bank. I was 22 years old, and I worked in a bank that was in a rural area. And when a client wanted to sell something, a client of the bank wanted to have a business with another company, they wanted to know if the other company will pay or not. And there was no information at all at that time in a mercantile register about the profit and loss or the balance of this company. So what happened at that time is that the companies have to, if they wanted to, and they have no experience, commercial experience with the new company that have a new business, the only place to obtain this data were the commercial banks, because we had experience, commercial experience with a lot of companies. So I remember myself being asked by a company to say, well, I have a new business with this guy, and it was what we call commercial report that was paid. We charge money to the company that asked for this information. And the commercial reports at that time that we produced were about things like, I remember because I did, is, this company that belongs to Antonio Fernandez. Well, we don't know much about Antonio, about the company, but about Antonio Fernandez, we could say first, is recently divorced. For risk assessment, you know, I don't know if this affects, but it was the kind of thing that we could say is recently divorced. Well, we know that is a person that is well known in the area. It seems that is a good payer. It seems. And also they have several assets, but the assets are of the family of the wife. So now that is divorced, perhaps the assets that can be provided as guarantee are not so clear. Well, this was the kind of analysis that was done in Spain to help the business to do business. Well, hopefully we were forced by Europe to say, well, no, you have to have a mercantile register where companies have to provide the data. And this is not only good for the National Central Bank, for the Statistical Office, it's good for the company that from that time have a place where you can go to check what is the situation of the sector of activity where I want to go, or even what is the situation of this precise company, and is something that was valued very positively by the companies itself. So, well, this is a part of our history and our knowledge about why it's so important to provide the information, because once you provide the information, you obtain some feedback, not only in terms of more information, but in terms of credibility of the total economy itself. For example, the rate that we have to pay from that time when we have more information about companies, the interest rate was better because, well, the risk was lower, you know. Well, I give now the floor to my colleague to present you the third part.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Manuel, for sharing your knowledge and your experience. My name is Alfredo Maldonado. I work for the Bank of Spain. I will try to explain you all the products and users of the Bank of Spain products. But before that, I would like to introduce myself a little bit. Just give me some minutes. I am in my late 40s. I am married. I have 2 kids. My one daughter, one son, he's 8. And I have been working in the Bank of Spain for 12 years. And you could ask, oh my God, this guy, what has he done previously? Well, in real fact, I have worked for 2 main multinational companies before joining the Spanish National Central Bank. The first one was a French company. His name is Danone. It's a yogurt, very well-known company. And the other one is Ferrovial, that is a Spanish multinational company. This company is a construction company, and then it diversified a lot its activities, and is now present here in Africa, America, Europe, North America, Australia. And I have been working in finance for all my life. So I have a finance background. And we sent all the information to the Bank of Spain when I was in the private sector. And this information was very useful for us, because although we had to have an effort, to prepare the information, everything was very automatized. And we got a lot of information from the National Central Bank when we had to introduce new products, when we had to invest in new countries, in new areas of Spain. So for us, as a user, was very, very useful to have this information. So I would like to share with you this prior experience that we had in Spain from the corporate point of view. And we think that now that you are starting with a National Central Bank, I encourage you to help this National Central Bank, because you will have also a lot of benefit taken from them, because they will give you a lot of information that will be very useful. For us, it was useful to know what was our positioning in the sector, what was the advantages of our company, the disadvantages, so a lot of information that you can get. So after this very short introduction of myself and my experience, I will now try to explain you all the products of the Spanish National Central Bank in the Central Balance Sheet Office. And we do not have much time. I will not go into much detail. I will just give you some briefly details of the products that we have. But I would like to invite you to go to our webpage and see all the products, because we're starting working with the National Bank of Angola, and they want also to provide this type of information to you as well. So you will have a look at what a Spanish company can have from our National Central Bank. And if you contribute with your information, you will have the same type of information for you. So we have several publications. We have an annual monograph. It's a product. It's let's say it's a report in which we have we share a lot of information to the public. We also collaborate and add to the statistical bulletin, also to the economical bulletin. And we also produce a lot of information for analytical articles and working papers for researchers, internal researchers, and also external researchers. These type of papers are really important for the economy and also to know what is happening in the Spanish economy. We also have a lot of applications. We will go into further details afterwards. And we have some information about the sector, some information about SMEs, small, medium enterprises, also some ratio from sectors. And also we contribute to international databases. In this case, it's batch, but we also contribute, batch is individual information, but we also contribute to consolidated database, international and European one. And we also have some applications to compare your company with peers, with competitors. Oh, sorry. So all this information is used by many users, going from the public administrations, press, researchers, universities that collaborate with us a lot, companies, and other type of users that are also in the country. Here you have a snapshot of all the products that we produce. We have information aggregated data and also individual data. So from aggregated data, you can have access to this information in the website. We produce products on a yearly basis, quarterly reports. We will explain it later. And we also produce statistical series and contributions to different databases. From an individual point of view, this is information that we provide to the corporations that collaborate with us in exchange of their efforts. So this is why it's so important for us to get this information from the companies, to have direct contact with them. And if they send us information that we do not understand, we try to speak with them to understand their problems, and they tell us why they're sending this information to us this way. And we try to know and to understand the problems of the company and try to introduce all the information in our databases in a proper manner. So we also have some individual information for our internal researchers. So all information that has been reported by the companies, this information is confidential. So nobody will have access to the individual information. The companies can have access to aggregated data in a way in which these companies could see how this company is positioned in different ratios. And this is very valuable information that the companies have. We have many users, the general public. You can go also here in Angola to our webpage. You can have access to our information there. And we also collaborate with other institutions, the National Statistics, the National Statistic Institution. We produce the financial accounts. The Bank of Spain is responsible for that. So the Central Balance Sheet Data Office provides information to produce these statistics. We also report information to our Governing Council for monetary policy decisions. And we also collaborate with the European Central Bank and with our colleagues in the European system of central banks. And we also share information with many different departments in the Bank of Spain. And also, recently, we created a data laboratory, and we also send this information to them. So here you have, let's say, a snapshot of our web page. And here you can, if you go to the web page, you have this product catalog, and then you will have a detail of all the products that we have in our central balance sheet data office. So these are the main products. Starting from the annual monography, this product is done on a yearly basis. And we have several products of the sector of activities and also some ratios for references in the sector. We also have a quarterly report, as Manuel has said before, and we also have two applications that are, let's say, like a summary of information. I will give you an example afterwards. And we also collaborate for the statistical bulletin of the Bank of Spain and also for two European databases that are the Batch and Erika. So starting from our annual monography, this is a report that is produced on a yearly basis, and we share information for the 10 previous years. So you have a lot of information, a lot of historical information of the non-financial corporation corporates in Spain by size and by sector activity. So you can see different types of companies and sector and activities. And you can have access to this information from 2 points of view, from micro and from macroeconomic point of view. And we also incorporate a lot of summary graphs, coverage, employment, data. And finally, we also have an analytical methodological note in which we explain how these statistics have been produced. So now I will try to go to another product. We have a sectorial product, and this information is very useful for companies. We have a lot of history in this product because you can have access to information starting from 1995 to the current year. And we have information that is coming from the balance sheets of the companies, the profit and loss, and we have also information about employment, salaries, and ratios for different cross-sections. Size, nature, if the company is public or private, and different sectors depending on the activity of the company. So of course, this information is in our website, so you can visit it, and I encourage you to go there and to have a look at it. So here you have, if you want to know something about your company and your sector, you have, you have here different steps just to select the activity, the year, different economic variables, and the application will give you the information. So it's very useful, very easy for a user. And we have seen that this application is very much used by our Spanish companies. As Manuel has said before, we also produce a quarterly report. This quarterly report is very important and very useful because we take the temperature of the Spanish economy on a quarterly basis. Companies are obliged to send information annually. And as companies collaborate with us, they give us information in advance before finishing the year. And this information is very powerful for us to know how the economy is going up or down, and for the National Central Bank to decide and to know what to do with monetary policy. So this is why this report is very important, very useful. And although it has a bias to large companies, because the biggest ones are the ones that collaborate with us, it's a very important sample, and these companies also could have a general and aggregated idea of what is going on with our report. So now I will go into further detail into two products that we have. That is, they are called Brief and Explore. They are two products. The first one is one product that gives you a general point of view of historical information about different indicators. And the other one is a more interactive product. It's developed in Power BI. And the user can go and change ratios or information, and then you can select different information, and then you will have the ratios, the graphs. So it's a very interactive application, and for a user or for a researcher, it's very, very, very easy and very, very nice. Then I will go into further details of the collaboration of the Bank of Spain with international databases. And here we have two databases. The first one is the BAC database. The BAC database is a database in which 12 European countries collaborate. And we send individual information for that database, and all the countries that collaborate to that database could have access to aggregated information for European countries. The other one is the RICA database. The RICA database is for consolidated information, and this consolidated information is only for 9 European countries. This information is stored in the Bank of France webpage, so you can go there and you can have access to the information. Here you have 2 snapshots. On the left side of this slide, you have the information in BAC, for BAC. So here you can choose the country. For example, in this case, we have included France and Spain. You can also select the year in which you want the information. You can also select the sector of activity and also the size of the company that you want to know the information. And then the application will give you different variables and different quartiles. And on the right side of the slide, you have, let's say, a snapshot of the coverage of the RICA database, country by country. And the coverage is pretty much high. And these are the countries that collaborate with this database. Now we will go to the sectorial ratios. In this case, we get this information from the BAC database, that is the international database for individual financing. And here you have the ratios that you can have in this application. So these are the ratios. All these ratios have been agreed among all the countries that collaborate with this database. And you can know, not only from a national point of view, because in our case, we have a lot of interaction with our European countries. As you may know, Spain is in the European Union, and many Spanish companies make business with French, Portuguese, Italian, German companies. So many companies would like to know how are the European companies, what are they doing, and what are their indicators, and then you can compare your companies also with these ones, because here this information is on an European point of view. I'll press the button too many times. Sorry. So now we have some national reports. In this case, some years ago, there was a law in Spain, that is the Law 5/2015, that obliges the banks, if a company goes to a bank asking for money, and the bank decides not to give the money to this company, the law obliges the bank to explain why this bank was not giving the money to this company. And the law said, okay, you are the Bank of Spain, you have a lot of information, you have your National Central Balance Sheet Data Office, and please, you have to do something. So in our case, we worked very hard, and we produced this product using the information in our Balance Sheet Data Office. So in this case, if the bank decides not to give the money to the company, they have to give them a report, and this report is based in our information. So this is a very useful report for companies, and this is why it's so important to have a central balance sheet data office in a country. So because you are trying to help that the finance goes and goes and goes to different companies, and to be more transparent and to explain why a company is not obtaining the debt that he or she wants to have. So in this case, the information that is produced is with different ratios. Here you have a ratio about activity, margin, profitability, liquidity. This is working capital, debt, and solvency, and capacity of debt service. And here you have the 4 quartiles, and then the application position the company in the different ratios. So if a company has, imagine, all the points, the points here, the dots, the dots for the company. If the company has all the dots here that is in the green area, that is the best one, and the bank says, no, we are not going to give you the finance, and the company is here in the green one, the company can say, why are you not giving me the finance? Because I am very good company. So this is why it's so important to have this report. To be transparent and for the companies to know why they are not getting the money. Sorry. So now we also produce some products very useful for the companies. The first one is the report for collaborating companies. As I explained it before, for a company that collaborates with us, we produce a report. And here you have an example. This is not only the information that we share with them, because we share much more information, but this is also some graphs. And in this case, we give them for example, in this case, for different indicators, the red line is the company and the other one is the sector. How, for example, in this case is the variation of employment through the years. So how the company, what is the tendency of the company and what is the tendency of the market, of the sector of activity of the company. So this is information that is very, very important for them. And I could really reassure you that when I was in a company, in a private company, we really used this information. It was very useful for us to know how our company was behaving, if we were profitable, much more better than the sector, or we were profitable, but not as profitable as the sector. And this is only possible if all the companies collaborate with the National Central Bank. So this is why it's so important that the companies collaborate, send information to the National Central Bank. And now that you have the chance that your National Central Bank is starting with the CBSO, that is the Central Balance Sheet Office, and they're going to give you this in some years. This is why it's so important that you collaborate with them, because you will have also a benefit from collaborating with the National Central Bank. So we also produce another product, because as Manuel said before, we have some collaborating companies, and we also get information from the commercial registers, because in Spain it's compulsory that all the companies send information to the commercial register, as Manuel said, because we had an European directive that obliges us to do that. So we said, okay, we are a national central bank, we have a public service, let's say, philosophical work. We have also to be useful for our society, for our communities, and we produce this product that is another product for all the companies. Any company that is a Spanish company can go to our webpage, and for different indicators, for example, in this one is the profitability of the asset. They introduce here for each year what is the profitability of asset for the company, and then the company can have the positioning over the years in different quartiles. So in this case, this company has gone from a lower position to a better one, and then the last year has reduced a little bit. So this is another example of why it's so important to have a central balance sheet office in a country, and how it's so important for a company to have this information. As I have said before, we also created a data laboratory, and we also send information to them for researchers. In this data laboratory is a very secure place in which the researchers can go and get the information. And we also produce also some products for internal uses. In this case, we have the MCV, that is the Macrodata Central Balance Sheet Office information. And it's a tool for researchers of the Bank of Spain. We created this application because it was very easy for them to get the data that they needed it for the researchers and for the papers and studies. In this case, well, we use we incorporate information from all the individual databases that we have. We have also information from 1995, and we provide them information from the profit and loss account, from the balance sheet margins, and we also give them some financial, non-financial indicators that they have to have. And we provide them with different output formats in Excel and also in Stata, that is a statistical product that they normally use. And we also difference between missing data and zero data, because this is something that is very important for them, for their models and for the papers. And I guess if this works, okay, oh, sorry. I just wanted to give you, we wanted just to, sorry, to give you a snapshot of the number of companies that we have in this product. It's around 1 million companies. So this is just to show you the big amount of information that we have in our database. So the more information that we have, the best product that we can offer to the society. And the national central banks, we are institutions that try to serve the communities and the societies. And here in Angola, that you have a national central bank that is trying to produce information for you. It's not because they want just to go to the national central bank and enjoy there. They want to do something for you. And we, as central bankers, we want to give you a product. We want to serve the country. And we really encourage you to do a little bit of effort sending information to your national central bank, because you will have a great benefit from that. And now I think Manuel wants to show you additional information about the Spanish non-financial corporations. Thank you very much.
Hello again. We have time then to show an example, because the idea was the last part is to present you what has been the situation of the Spanish non-financial corporation analyzed by the rigs in the financial statistical area. So is the use of our data for analysis. So we have 10, 15 minutes. Well, here, the idea is to present you what is the situation of the Spanish non-financial corporations with the data that we had. We have prepared this Monday, I said, the situation of the first quarter of 2023, but this is done with only the quarterly data. That is 2 pages of information. The companies provide us only one balance sheet, very small, very reduced, and also a profit and loss account, also very reduced. The analysis that we will present is the mix of the yearly data and the quarterly data. So is what we presented last year for the analysis. This is Artículo Analítico. It was presented in December last year, 2022. To explain what was the situation of the companies in 2021, that is 1 year before. This is history, really. But well, in this case, to use the information of the annual database allow us to provide very precise details about the behavior of the population, as I said before, because we have the microdata. And we also provided at that time the situation of the third quarter of 2022. This is the report that I will use for the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I will show you some pictures about what is the situation in 2023 now. Yeah, because this was, well, it will be presented, but mainly if you go to the webpage, because when I prepared this presentation, we have not published yet what we have published in this Monday. So I will recommend you to go to the webpage also. So, well, what happened in 2020? What happened in 2020 is that suddenly everything was crazy. Yes, of course. And especially for businesses, and especially for those businesses more affected by the pandemic. And we saw something that never we thought that we will see, of course. This reduction in the production of companies that never in all the time series analysis that we had, we saw. That is the reason why we had a decrease about 14% of the net turnover of the companies. And what happened is that mathematically, the next year, when you recover a little, well, the mathematics says that immediately you have a rate of growth that increase until, in this case, was 16%. What was important in this case, well, this was something known by everybody, but is that we could say what were the companies more affected and the sectors of activity more affected. And as I said to you before, even what was the amount of subsidies that we have to provide them to keep them alive. Well, this change in the net turnover, we divided in two things. One, by size, small companies and large companies. And on that, we knew that the recovery of 2021 was higher for the large companies that had a 16% of growth. But the other thing very important, it was to divide the population on those sectors of activity more affected by the COVID and those sectors of activity less affected. What is the way to divide these two sectors of activity? Well, with the data that we had, we said we will divide the population on those sectors of activity that in 2020 they have a decrease over 15% of the net turnover. Those that have a decrease over more than 15%, these are the more affected, like tourism, for example, that we have a decrease of nearly 70%. So we can know now how have behaved the two sectors of activity. Those more affected have had a higher recovery in the year 2021, as it was supposedly. So 18% of increase in the net turnover, while the less affected sectors had an increase of 16%. Okay. The other thing is what happened with the profitability of the companies. In this case, is the return on assets, is the ratio that we employ, the rentabilidad del activo neto, return on assets. But in this case, instead of using the weighted average, what is happening with all the companies, we go to the statistical distribution, and here what we show is the median, the second quartile of the statistical distribution. So this is the normal behavior of the companies that are in this part of the population. So with this, what we see is that the companies more affected by the more affected by the COVID were the large companies, more than the small, but the recovery was higher in the small companies in relation to the large. And afterwards, the division between the most affected and less affected, of course, the only that have negative values in the return on assets are those that were really affected by the COVID, because those that were not or less affected, even they kept their profitability in positive terms. Well, the other thing is what happened with the percentage of companies with return on asset negative, that is with losses. These companies, we knew the percentage of companies that were in this situation in losses in the year 2020, and we wanted to know how fast the companies began to be in the positive area. They began to have profitability positive. So the small companies, 6% of the companies move from having losses to have profits. While the large companies, this increase was only at 2%, to 3% of companies. And again, what happened with the most affected sectors of activity and less? Of course, the most affected were the one that had a immediately recovery, moving from losses to profits. That was 18% of the companies. So the 18% of the companies began to have profits again. Now, what happened with the liquidity ratio? Liquidity. Well, something that happened is that, well, companies in the year 2020, you see, from 2019 to 2020, they kept money just in case. So the liquidity ratio increased because the companies preferred to have money just in case they have the need for the future. So this was happening in 2020, but in 2021, they kept stable. So the companies were still saying, well, wait and see what happened in the economy. What happened with this ratio of liquidity by companies? Well, what we have seen is that in the year 2021, it was stable, we say, but it's not the case of the small companies that reduce the liquidity. So in the case of small companies, they had the need to reduce the liquidity because they were also included in the most affected sectors of activity by COVID. What happened with debt? We say, well, how was the situation of companies more vulnerable? Could we say vulnerable in English? Yeah. Vulnerability. Okay. So the most vulnerable companies, what was the situation? And how evolve? We have more companies vulnerable or less vulnerable. What is to be vulnerable? There are two things in the definition of Banco de España about to be a vulnerable company. One is if your debt is over 75% of your total assets or total liabilities. So those that have more than 75% of debt are more vulnerable, we could say. This is one thing. And the other is if you need more than 9 years to give back your money. I said before, when you compare the total debt with the incomes that you have. So this is the situation of how the percentage of companies evolve. There were less or more vulnerable companies. And here the positive thing is that everything is negative. That is good because each time there are less vulnerable companies in Spain. And what is the percentage? Around 1% of evolution, but mainly in those sectors of activity that were more affected in the COVID, because after the COVID, they recover more easily. This is the situation of this analysis. Okay. I will move now to the, I don't know if I can. No, it's not working. Oh. No, it's not here. Well, I will show you 2 slides more and we will finish because this is a picture about what is the kind of analysis that we can do with. It seems that it's not working now. Now, okay. Well, this is what is the kind of information that we provide. And in this case is the data of the profit and loss account that we provide information of the year 2022, because it's the information that we have for the quarterly data. So we have information about the evolution of the gross added value, that it was really good in the year 2021. In 2022, it was even better because the recovery was still going over. And if we move to the next slide, we will see with graphs. This is the kind of graphs. This is perfect. Yes, this is to show you, and we will finish with this neatly. Is to which extent 1,000 companies allow us to know what is happening with the sector of activity of the institutional sector. This is the line blue. The blue is, no, excuse me, the quarterly is the red line, and the blue is the information of all the companies. So this is around 800,000 companies, the blue line, and the red line is 1,000 companies. And you will see that the information that is provided by 1,000 companies allow us to know with an advance of at least 9 months what is the evolution that we will have afterwards in the total economy. And what we see is that the recovery of the year 2021 has increased even in the year 2022. And if we see, and you can do it in the website, what is happening now in the first quarter of 2023, the recovery is even going still better with employment and also with the net turnover. To finish, what I want to say is that here we have some information that it seems to be interesting. That is what is happening with the gasto de personal, that is the personal cost, the expenses to the staff. It increased in the year 2022 6.9. That is something that probably let you a little frozen or at least cold. Is what is this? Is good? Is bad? Well, what happened with the expenses? No, please go at this. What happened with the expenses or to the personal cost is not important in terms of analysis. What is important is if you have this increase at 6.9, why? Is because you have more employees or because you pay more to these employees? This is the information that is provided in this chart. In this case, it's both things. You have more employees, 3.6 more employees, but also you have to pay more to these employees, 3.2 more, because this is the compensation to employees in average. So this is the analysis, and if we move and we finish with the next one, please, because it's something also, you could move to the next slide. And the next also, excuse me, because, well, this is about profitability. But to the next slide again, if you could. And, well, this is, no, this is the previous one. To the next, this, here. And this is the end, I promise. I promise. Now it's truth. Well, what is happening with the financial expenses? Again, is the same that happened with the information about employment. Is what is important to know is we could know that in the year 2022, the expenses, financial expenses, grown at 11%. But this is called this. What is important is to know if this increase is because the company has more debt or if because the interest rate has grown. And this is something that we could know with the data that we have in the Central Balance Sheet Data Office. In this case, the main part of the increase in the expenses, in financial expenses, are due to the increase in the debt, because it has been an impulse to the economy and more debt because there are more business, while the interest rate is still in the year 2022, is not the case in 2023. 2022, still the interest rate that was paid by the companies increased very, very slowly, 1.6%. So this picture about the behavior of companies allow you to provide some insights about why are happening things. It's not only the figures, it's also the behavior of companies and the behavior of the total economy. So, well, this is only one example of the kind of studies that could be done also with this information, as you are having now in the National Central Bank of Angola with the 4 sectors of activity that has been analyzed by your Central Balance Sheet Data Office. So, well, thank you very much. And now is, I think, the turn for questions, isn't it? Thank you.
Muito agradecemos pelas brilhantes apresentações feitas pelos nossos representantes cá do Banco de Espanha, nomeadamente o Sr. Manuel e o Sr. Alfredo. Foram de facto muito incisivos no tema, mas acredito que temos algumas questões. Nós vamos passar a palavra então à plateia para poderem fazer 3 perguntas. Vamos dizer que de português para espanhol parece ser muito fácil a compreensão, mas não é. Então, quando formos fazer as perguntas, por favor, vamos fazer de forma pausada para poder permitir ou a tradução ou então, se for mesmo em português, para fazermos calmamente, porque senão os senhores podem não perceber a ideia, podem não perceber o pensamento, e se pudermos ser diretos nas questões também seria melhor. Portanto, vamos passar a palavra ao auditório para fazer então pelo menos 3 perguntas e se houver tempo, então vamos abrir uma outra ronda de perguntas e respostas. Então, a palavra é toda vossa. Podem então fazer as perguntas. Muito obrigado. Solicitamos que... Temos aqui umas perguntas? Não?
Dois. Obrigado. Bom dia. João Futi, é um prazer ouvir o senhor Ortega e o senhor Alfredo. Tanto fizemos os encontros preparativos, mas infelizmente tive que ausentar-me. Mas eu penso que os meus colegas fizeram um bom trabalho convosco. E eu queria mais uma vez agradecer a vossa presença aqui e essa troca de experiência que estamos a fazer no âmbito da Central de Balanço. Também aproveito para agradecer à plateia. Conforme puderam notar, grande parte deles são as nossas fontes de informação. Tanto no caso da maior parte dos setores que nós temos, são realmente fontes, diria, administrativas, né? Porque nós usamos mais as declarações fiscais, não é, que são submetidas à nossa autoridade tributária, para depois, a partir desses dados, produzirmos a central de balanço. Maybe the interpreter is not working, so let me try to explain in English, so maybe you can be comfortable with English, knowing with Portuguese. No, I was thanking you to come in Angola, so I was absent, as my colleague said to you, but I'm so glad to have you in Angola and participating in this technical assistant mission. And I was thinking also our companies, most of them are the oil companies, because the oil companies submit directly the information to the central banks. Because of some limitation that we have from the data that they submit to the fiscal authority, we produce some surveys, to fulfill all the needs that we have for the central balance sheet office data. I want to raise some questions for BAF. Let's start with Mr. Ortega. You were saying about the survey for households. You say that survey is about the so it's annual. It's annual. The household send this survey to the Bank of Spain about the wealth, But I didn't understand well the nature and the detail of the data that this survey contain, because in our case, so we are trying to capture the information about households, about our, we call CIRC. CIRC is a credit central credit of information. So that's it. We have colleagues from GAC. They can explain well about this silk. So we are trying to collect information about those household. But as I said, this center of information is for credit purpose. It's not for another purpose. And the information that we are collecting from this center of information, most of them is loans. It's loans. And we say, when you say that your surveys is about wealth, I would like to understand this wealth, because wealth is many things. I don't know in detail which kind of wealth that you are referring to, understand how we can better our experience in terms of collecting information from households. For Mr. Ortega, also, you say that in terms of submission, the information from companies, we have a gap of 6 months or more. Yeah, because the law is the old one from 19th century. Yeah, the 19th century. But nowadays, we are in 2023. What the Central Bank of Spain or the authority of Spain, what you are doing to change this situation? Because in Europe, so for me, I was not expecting to listen that the company sent you the information of last year until in October of this year. So it's a big gap. So I would like to understand what you are doing to revert this situation. In terms of source, the individual accounts source. So you mentioned 3 kinds of source. We have integrated database, you have direct service, and we have administrative source. Yeah, but I didn't understand which of them you use to produce the central balance sheet data. So, and when you say the administrative source, can you explain which kind of administrative source is from the Institute of Statistics or is from customs authorities? Is to compare with what we are doing in terms of the administrative source. Yes, to finish, Mr. Ortega, you show us a graph with the numbers of companies that we have. So it's a huge number, 1 million. But I would like to understand in terms of in terms of cover. So this 1 million of companies that we have in central balance sheet represent which rate in terms of all the companies that you have in Spain economy. So this is for Mr. Ortega. No, before to finish, Mr. Ortega, you have in terms of products, we have. I would like to mention 2 kinds of products that you say: statistical bulletins and economic bulletins. So both of them is producing by statistic department, or the research department also can give some contributions in terms of the production or the elaboration of economic bulletin. I would like to also to understand this. Now moving for Mr. Alfredo. Moving to Mr. Alfredo, I would like to understand in terms of yes, you say that the commercial banks, when some company ask for credit for commercial banks, if the commercial bank deny to give credit, he must justify why he didn't do that. And you say that the commercial bank, they use the information of central balance sheet. My doubt is that data is individual, so the commercial bank can see individual data from each company in the central bank or central balance sheet. Okay, so this is not it's not I can say we are not against the law. So in terms of confidentiality principle, so you are not doing something against the law. This is the one. The last one. So the data you show us the distinctity of the data that you produce. You have universities, you have the press, also many of the proposed. But in terms of report from, for example, economic monetary committee or monetary policy, so that data is useful also or not? Or the report or the presentation for economic monetary policy meeting. So this is my question. Thank you also again. I would like to remember that we have participate from yeah. You have to give the some. Thank you. Okay.
May I answer now then? Yes. We wait.
Bom dia a todos. Eu vou preferir colocar as minhas questões em português para todo mundo ouvir e vou falar de forma pausada. Eu sou o Juba Lulendo e acompanho atentamente a apresentação. Desde já quero também parabenizar aqui o BNA, porque de facto a estatística é informação, informação é poder e qualquer investidor ou estudante aqui em Angola sente-se com muitas dificuldades de obter informação. Então, essa ideia é muito boa. Mas, ainda assim, isso eu fiquei na dúvida, acompanhei de forma atenta a apresentação, se não existe aqui algum conflito, ainda que seja pequeno, de interesse entre a Central de Balanço e o Instituto de Estatística. Essa é a minha primeira questão. E se existe, qual tem sido a estratégia para ultrapassar isso? A segunda questão era relativamente às empresas. Todas as empresas que fornecem informação são de domínio público ou privado? Peço desculpas, confesso que acompanhei, mas fiquei sem perceber. Depois, tenho aqui duas sugestões, né, que é para tanto aqui para o auditório, primeira vez que eu cá estou, e cheguei antes até das boas-vindas. Pelo menos na nossa indústria, existe o safety moment, ou seja, o momento de segurança. Se houver aqui alguma situação, eu não sei quem devo seguir, as rotas de saída, tem os pictogramas na parede, mas, por exemplo, a nossa regra tem um momento de segurança, onde explica onde é que são as casas de banho e tudo mais, e uma outra era relativamente também ao hino nacional, que nós fazemos sempre questão de... Portanto, é uma diferença e uma sugestão. Então, tenho essas duas questões e essas duas sugestões. Era tudo. Obrigado.
Caros presentes, para darmos nota que esta conferência está em simultâneo via Zoom, ou seja, estamos aqui na sala, mas também temos participantes via Zoom que juntaram-se a nós desde o princípio e nós, de facto, não os saudamos, portanto, saudamos a todos que estão a acompanhar-nos via Zoom e vamos dar palavra então ao senhor Aquino Chilundo para então fazer uma questão. Senhor Aquino, consegue ouvir-nos?
Sim, bom dia.
Pode fazer a sua questão, por favor.
Bom dia. Eu sou Aquino Chilundo, trabalho sobre Moçambique, trabalho no banco de Moçambique, e afeto ao tratamento estatístico. Queria, em primeiro lugar, agradecer o convite. Sabe que eu estou na vontade aqui, começando a ter a quero também um especial abraço de tudo ela, quero pedir bastante essas questões que a senhora Balanços, então, peço parabéns do Banco Nacional de Angola por esta iniciativa de promover este pequeno workshop para os partidos, tanto esta base de dados que é muito importante para os fazedores comunitários em particular. Quero também dar os parabéns aos apresentadores do dia, o Manuel e o Alfredo, a apresentação espetacular. Temos acompanhado como o Banco da Espanha que está a evoluir nesta matéria de central de balanços, que é também de interesse do Departamento de Estatísticas do Banco de Moçambique, que tem também dados publicados sobre a central de balanços. Indo direto à questão, eu queria, portanto, certo para qualquer um deles, se um exemplo específico, não é? Eu pude acompanhar que a central de balanços do Banco da Espanha já tem mais de 30 anos, portanto, vida, e então isso implica vários ciclos econômicos que já estiveram a acompanhar, incluindo crises. Então a questão é como é que, da vossa experiência, que o uso específico já se fez de dados, todos os indicadores da central de balanço, particularmente para a decisão política monetária, pode ser outra, tendo havido, tanto durante estes 30 anos, tanto para uma decisão que, eventualmente, se não tivéssemos os dados da central de balanço, se calhar poderíamos não ter conseguido tomar. Então, esta é a minha questão e muito obrigado.
Thank you. Is working then here now? Okay. So, well, first thing, thank you very much for the questions of the audience and your question especially. And well, about well, the languages. The problem is that in some cases we hear both, and for that reason we tried to go to the Portuguese, and we didn't know everything was perfect, the Portuguese and the English, but at the same time, in some cases, created some. Well, mismatch, and for that reason we tried, and thank you very much for asking in English then. So, but we understood perfectly your Portuguese. Probably it's Portuñol that you use Portuguese that for us was really easy. So thank you very much again. Well, I will answer, and afterwards Alfredo, and we will go in order if you don't mind. First, about the survey of households. Yes, we began a lot of years ago, more than 20. It's Olympia Bover, that is our specialist, is a head of department now at Banco de España, and is the specialist in the household survey that was carried out by her, afterwards by Italy, and I think that the United States and more countries have engaged in the creation of this kind of surveys. Our surveys that are out of is on the hands of our department, not on statistics, is in microeconomic analysis department with under Olympia Bover analysis. And we to produce this survey, we contract a company, a specialized company on surveys that create the surveys with households. I mean, they select in the country with a statistical procedure, a subset of households in all the country with different levels of income, each household, to have a survey about the wealth in general, but specifically financial wealth, about what are the deposits that you have, the assets, financial assets that you have, and the kind of financial assets, if they are shares or bonds or debt, public debt, and afterwards also the real estates that they have. So it's a survey on the different kind of wealth that a family can have: real estate, real investments, and afterwards financial assets also. The waves. So not every year is nearly impossible. They before did this work every 4 years, afterwards every 3 years, and now they are doing every 2 years. So every 2 years they repeat and they do again the analysis. And the results are available in the website of the Banco de España. So the researchers can download the data, totally anonymized. They have to eliminate some part of the classifiers. I mean, if you are a very rich person and you live in Galicia, you live close to La Coruña, you are Matega. That is the person that has Sara. So they avoid to provide this information precisely to make it totally confidential. This is what I about this survey, but all the information available in the website. There is also the guidance about how the survey is done and the result itself. New thing that perhaps is interesting to share with you in the statistics is that the financial account, one of the things of the Data Gaps Initiative, the International Data Gaps Initiative of the International Monetary Fund, was to begin the creation of distributional financial accounts. This concept of
contas financeiras distribucionais. E pela primeira vez eu escutei essa definição, eu disse o que significa contas financeiras distribuídas. Disseram que deve ter conexão, saber, quando devemos escolher para os dados da conta financeira, devemos saber qual é a distribuição estatística da população. Por exemplo, se tivermos informação sobre os depósitos, devemos saber se os depósitos dos familiares está concentrado ou qual é a distribuição estatística entre os cidadãos. E caso haver uma grande concentração de riqueza numa população, e se ela é bem distribuída. Então, essa conta financeira distribuidora deve estar conectada com as pesquisas, os inquéritos da atividade familiar. Agora trabalham em conjunto com as áreas financeiras, com nossos colegas, que tentam conectar uma parte da informação que têm de informação usada na conta bancária distribuidora financeira. O segundo aspecto era sobre o prazo de entrega, que era de 6 meses a 9 meses, e finalmente a aplicação é feita depois de 11 meses. E é incrível, é incrível. E depois de muitos séculos e décadas, continuamos a ter os mesmos dados, mas, embora eu expliquei que isso não faz sentido.
And the question is, well, what we could do from the National Central Bank? Well, what we have done is try at least to obtain the data immediately. I mean, if you provide the data in the 6 months to the mercantile
ao registro mercantil e receber a informação um dia depois, não é possível, porque o registro mercantil são aqueles que recebem os dados, ele tem que fazer, o afeto está a trabalhar com o Escritório Estatístico Nacional, com o Ministério da Justiça, de forma a fazer algo semelhante sobre como os meus colegas portugueses fizeram. Criaram um sistema integrado de forma a ter informação em formato eletrônico ao mesmo tempo. Então, você recebe os dados no final de junho e pelo menos teremos 3 meses. Então, em fevereiro, em vez de junho. Devido às leis atuais mercantis, não é possível. E também é algo que está a acontecer a nível da Europa. Eu acho que é algo que devemos aguardar, mas dizer que o que nós fazemos é que recebemos em junho e as que recebemos baixamos imediatamente e e teremos o relatório preparado em agosto, por exemplo. Falando sobre a fonte, talvez aqui é a empresa. Aqui também falando sobre a GT ou a empresa do setor petrolífero. Então, temos muitas empresas, aqui também temos outras fontes. Quando eu falo sobre fonte administrativa, neste caso, estou a me referir ao registro mercantil do setor. Então, um gabinete de justiça onde as empresas devem, e tudo que mudar na empresa deve constar no registro mercantil. E eles devem fornecer dados anualmente nesse setor mercantil e dizer que desde 1990 essas dados tornaram-se públicos. Antes disso, esses dados eram informações das empresas nesse registro mercantil e está disponível ao público. E dizer que a base de dados integrada de dados é quando juntamos tudo. Então, a base de dados integrada teve com a integração das empresas do registro mercantil e suas fontes de direito. Em alguns casos tem a mesma informação, mas com uma mais detalhada, porque as empresas que têm que usar os dados devem também fornecer informação ao registro mercantil. E continuamos a ter esse contato direto, porque devido a essas estatísticas temos mais detalhes no nosso. E depois fizemos todas as análises. E a análise que é feita é proveniente da base de dados integrada. Falamos sobre envio de informação. Quando, dependendo do ano, por exemplo, 800 mas a pergunta é qual o nível de cobertura? Em nível de cobertura, em termos de número de empresas, a cobertura é mais de 90%, em termos de 60%, em termos de empregabilidade, corresponde a 70%. Então, muitas empresas têm 90% do valor total. Quando fizemos a comparação com os dados de estatística, em alguns casos, pode haver uma diferença entre os agregados familiares e as empresas. Então, podemos dizer que mas pode haver uma diferença, porque a maioria dos números de agregados familiares. Então, e também olhamos para o nível de empregabilidade, na qual a cobertura da população perfaz a 70%. E também, falando sobre o boletim estatístico e o boletim econômico, é verdade, nós temos dois departamentos estatísticos e também o departamento de pesquisa. Então, a análise é normalmente feita pelos nossos colegas de outras áreas, da área econômica. Por exemplo, esta análise que eu mostrei no princípio foi feita pela minha equipa em 1994 até 2015 e depois disso todas as análises foram feitas com a universidade da área de análise econômica, porque eles queriam análise mais integrada entre a análise econômica de toda a economia e as empresas não financeiras. Continuamos a produzir imediatamente ver onde é que eles estão e distribuir dados para as universidades, especialmente as universidades, de forma a dar-lhes a oportunidade de fazer as suas análises. Então, estamos especializados na estatística. E no boletim econômico, Também temos a nossa parceria e fizemos relatórios interessantes e incríveis, como, por exemplo, de várias empresas, a metodologia. E quando prestamos estes dados gestoras e então trabalhamos de forma a fazer essas análises de forma mais integrada, do ponto de vista mais integrado, com os dados específicos sobre a economia. Eu depois irei responder a outra pergunta.
I can also give some answer to your question. If when a company has you have any problems with against the law, in Spain, the corporates are obliged to report the information on a yearly basis to the commercial register. So this information is public. So we use this public information. So we do not use any confidential information. And therefore, we also aggregate this information. And on an aggregated basis, we provide this information to the banks. So we are not providing the banks individual data. We are providing aggregated data for the quartiles, and then the bank, with information of the company that is asking a bank loan to the bank, they get this report. So we do not have any problems against the law because we are aggregating public information, and we are providing aggregated information to the banks. So from the central balance sheet data office and from the Bank of Spain, no problem at all, no legal problems from both sides. The information is public, and we are providing aggregated information. So no,
fornecer informação adicional
ao banco.
Isso não temos problema em fornecer informação. Por caso contrário, iremos ser levados a barra do tribunal e preso, coisa que nós não queremos, né? Então, vou dizer que não há problema nenhum. A segunda pergunta é muito interessante. Essa informação é usada para políticas monetárias e eu vou dar uma resposta clara e fácil. Sim, esses dados fornecidos, produzidos pelos centros, usados para política monetária e também para supervisão bancária, para muitas outras áreas do Banco da Espanha. E quando eu juntei-me ao Banco da Espanha, juntei-me com o colega Manuel Spin e depois fui para o Departamento de Risco Financeiro e depois voltei de novo no nosso escritório. O meu cargo anteriormente era de fazer avaliação da qualidade de crédito das empresas, porque nós somos do banco e devemos saber a capacidade de pagamento da empresa, porque os bancos, como o banco quis mobilizar ativos para o banco central, de forma de liquidez, é uma política monetária de bancos centrais. Então, usamos essa informação proveniente dos bancos centrais, além dos bancos tributários. Sim, e temos muito, do ponto de vista de informação agregada, bem como informação de macrodados para ambos questões de informação e para política monetária. Muito obrigado pelas perguntas. Peço desculpa, estava a falar em português. Eu estava a perceber 95% em português mas quis perceber por completo. Depois mudei para o canal em inglês e estava a escutar em inglês, em português, mas caso não respondi a pergunta, podem voltar a fazer a pergunta e irei responder. Agora, estando diretor de Estatística Nacional, no caso da Espanha, eu posso dizer que temos um acordo sobre como trabalhar em conjunto e fizemos a recepção digital dos dados na empresa e trabalhamos com o escritório nacional de muitos anos na central de bases, na central de balanços, mas dizer que, no princípio, estamos céticos. Por exemplo, ok, isso era. Não são estatísticas financeiras, mas 5 anos depois, tudo tornou-se confortável, porque eles pensaram, especialistas em negócio, ou no escritório, não em contabilidade. E, no princípio, eles faziam produziam dados sobre a produção, informação sobre, e não fazia parte da linguagem dos contabilistas. Então, nós ajudamos a reforçar o nosso escritório de nações estatísticas, a trabalhar em conjunto com as empresas de forma a conhecer melhor a linguagem das empresas, organizamos seminários de forma a dar-lhes mais input sobre contabilidade e no final do dia é que tudo que nós preparamos começamos a ter todas as empresas e nunca publicamos estes dados a nível agregado depois do processo de toda a recolha de informação, mas dizer que os dados eram dados que eram disponibilizados de forma a não confundir os cidadãos. Então, produziam. E nós produzimos dados para as contas financeiras da nossa economia, ao Escritório Nacional de Estatística, que é feito pelo colega Alfredo, e também recebemos dados de outras fontes de informação, mas nunca publicamos sobre tudo que está acontecendo com todas as empresas em Espanha. Mas dizemos que esse é o número de empresas na Espanha e a informação que eles têm dado. Então, nós damos a distribuição estatística, que é bom também para o escritório nacional de estatística, mas evitamos interferência e dizer que nós nunca forçamos dados e dizer que okay, esses são os dados oficiais das empresas não financeiras. A segunda pergunta, não sei se percebi bem, falou algo sobre empresas públicas e privadas. Temos dados para discutir.
Não sei se cheguei a responder a sua pergunta. E a última pergunta do nosso colega de Moçambique, e obrigado pelas suas palavras. Quanto à pergunta sobre a política monetária, é algo que tinha sido bem explicado pelo Alfredo. Bem, para acrescentar, os nossos dados são utilizados no Banco de Espanha para a estabilidade financeira, mas em termos de política monetária, ela é utilizada pelo Banco Central da Europa e não pelo Banco de Espanha, porque devido à nossa integração no sistema financeiro europeu, as decisões são tomadas a nível do Banco Central Europeu. E então, sobre a política monetária são feitas de forma conjunta pelo Banco Central Europeu. E tal como o Alfredo tinha dito, essas decisões também foram tomadas porque para fazer a análise de risco precisávamos de informação sobre as instituições não financeiras. Isso não é agora a decisão é tomada em Frankfurt pelo Banco Central Europeu, quer dizer, são as decisões sobre a política monetária. Mas a implementação é feita a nível federal e depois implementação a nível local. Muito obrigado.
De facto, o tema é tão interessante que poderíamos ficar aqui o dia todo a debater, mas devido ao avançar da hora, vamos ter que terminar por aqui. Convidamos a todos no final a um pequeno coffee break que está lá fora, mas não podíamos deixar de fechar a sessão de hoje. Forte salva de palmas.
Obrigado. Bom dia a todos. É chegado o fim deste workshop sobre fui informado que a Central do Banco de Espanha, 40 anos atrás, e eu iria pedir aqui uma ronda de aplausos. Aplausos, faz favor. Ilustres representantes dos bancos centrais da Comunidade de Países de Língua Portuguesa, CPLP, e do Banco de Espanha, distintos representantes de departamentos ministeriais do Executivo angolano, caros responsáveis e quadros do Banco Nacional de Angola, da Administração Geral Tributária, do Instituto Nacional de Estatística e do Tecido Empresarial, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. É com elevada satisfação que, em nome do Conselho de Administração do Banco Nacional de Angola, renovo os nossos profundos agradecimentos a todos os participantes que se dignaram abraçar a presente sessão de capacitação sobre as estatísticas da Central de Balanços e sua importância. Como puderam notar, na gestão moderna, a informação estatística é a base para a tomada de decisões de políticas de forma geral, e de modo particular no domínio das estatísticas do setor real da economia, uma vez que representam indubitavelmente um instrumento fundamental na formulação de políticas macroeconômicas do país. Nesse sentido, o Banco Nacional de Angola, no âmbito das suas atribuições, tem intensificado a supervisão do sistema financeiro, bem como a evolução da atividade econômica no geral, requerendo, por isso, informações atuais e oportunas, sendo que, de certa forma, vinha constatando haver limitações no setor institucional das sociedades não financeiras. Essa limitação foi ultrapassada depois da criação da Central de Balanços, implementada com o apoio do Banco de Portugal, passando a ser um instrumento importante no processo de tomada de decisão. Assim, com a experiência do Banco de Espanha e outros bancos centrais neste workshop, uma vez mais notamos que os bancos centrais, para desenvolverem cabalmente as suas atribuições e competências, devem dispor de um conjunto de informações do setor financeiro que habitualmente não são suficientes, devendo ser complementadas com outras estatísticas, destacando-se o setor das estatísticas das sociedades não financeiras, captadas a partir de uma central de balanços. Ficou patente na sessão de hoje que a central de balanços disponibiliza informações e indicadores para análise econômica e financeira das sociedades não financeiras que permitem, tal como referimos, reforçar o processo de tomada de decisões dos bancos centrais no âmbito da operacionalização da política monetária e da política macroprudencial, bem como potencializar a optimização das decisões dos bancos comerciais, investidores, analistas e outros operadores econômicos. O grande volume de dados e de empresas que a Central de Balanços incorpora impõe a necessidade de reforço da capacitação de quadros e de investimento em tecnologias de informação para o aprimoramento do tratamento de dados imprescindíveis à investigação econômica e financeira. Assim sendo, as principais fontes usadas pelo Banco Nacional de Angola para a recolha de informação são a AGT e o INE, e em casos muito específicos, as próprias empresas. Neste contexto, através de um acesso ao portal de contribuinte da AGT, o Banco Nacional de Angola extrai as demonstrações financeiras das empresas, mas dadas algumas limitações no médio e longo prazo, haverá necessidade do desenvolvimento de um trabalho conjunto com outras instituições para a criação de um repositório único de tratamento de dados, tendo em vista a prestação de apoio a todos os organismos de supervisão e fiscalização. Caros convidados, como é de vosso conhecimento, o Banco Nacional de Angola começou a publicar dados dos primeiros setores do Central de Balanços no final de 2021, trilhando, por isso, os primeiros passos nesta matéria, pelo que deve continuar a beber do saber e da experiência dos bancos centrais de referência na produção de estatísticas, como são os casos do Banco de Espanha, Banco de Portugal e outros bancos. Com a colaboração notável dos nossos parceiros, o presente exercício revelou-se bastante profícuo, porquanto foi possível realçar as vantagens da criação de uma central de balanços que permite, dentre outros, alcançar os seguintes aspectos positivos: contribuir na elaboração de estudos sobre diversos setores da atividade econômica, bem como alertar o sistema financeiro sobre as possibilidades de incumprimento de responsabilidades creditícias, tendo em conta a interligação desses dois grandes setores institucionais. Oferecer aos investidores nacionais e estrangeiros a oportunidade de dispor de um manancial de estatísticas financeiras do setor real da economia para sustentar as suas análises de investimento, disponibilizar ingredientes suficientes para a compreensão da dinâmica da atividade econômica em cada setor, com destaque para os custos de produção, um dos elementos-chave na avaliação da competitividade das empresas, bem como a sustentabilidade da diversificação da economia. Por último, reiteramos que para o êxito desta ação faz-se necessário o envolvimento de todos os setores empresariais. O trabalho é árduo e desafiador, porém, os benefícios são inequívocos e extraordinários. Por isso, agradeço a todos pela participação ativa e, de modo particular, uma vez mais expresso o meu apreço ao Banco de Espanha pela partilha de conhecimento vital para o cumprimento eficaz da nossa missão institucional. Com essas palavras, declaro encerrado o nosso evento e muito obrigado.